How's everybody doing? Brian with FishingHype.com, Fishing Hype Guide Service. We're out here on Kentucky Lake, and we're doing a little bit of running around, trying to find some white bass and yellow bass, and just kind of a little bit of everything today, but we're going to try to key on the whites and the yellows. It's the last of July, first part of August. We've actually had a fairly cool summer so far. And we're just going to go fish some summer patterns. The water isn't as warm as we'd normally see with the fish being up in the jumps. We haven't really seen any out here in the jumps at all, where they start following the bait fish and chase the bait fish to the surface and eat. So we're finding a lot of them out here on the ledges, basically where you're going to be bass fishing, and just looking for the little pods and groups of fish, and basically doing a 3-bait approach. One's a blade bait, another's just your regular little spoon, and the other is just using a rooster tail. You can also use live bait, split shot and small hook and minnow and catch them that way. But there's a little white. You gotta be careful with them. Their fins will get you pretty good. Their gill plates are sharp as can be. We caught that one on a blade bait. I'll show you the 3 baits real quick. This one here is the blade bait, just a steel shad, blade bait, whatever. I mean, just a piece of metal with the lead on it. You can get them in different sizes, treble hook front and back, and you just yo-yo that up and down off the bottom, and it vibrates coming up, and then when you give it slack to let it fall, it just kind of falls back, looks like an injured bait fish. The spoon we're using, and there's several different ones out there. I'm not even sure what the name of this one is. A friend of mine gave it to me. Just a small little spoon like such. Yeah, weight, it just depends on how deep you're fishing, if there's current or no current, or what you're doing there. And color, man, your chromes, golds, and this one here's got a little golden chartreuse to it. Biggest thing I found with any of the spoons is always having like a swivel on top. Otherwise your line will get jacked up pretty bad, get twisted really bad. So I've put a snap and a swivel above this one, just a easy change on the bait. It's already got a swivel on it anyhow, so I figured the snap isn't gonna hurt anymore for any action or anything, and actually kind of helps it give it a little more action with the loop there. The other bait that we have is the rooster tail, and these two in any size, your whites, your silvers, golds, drop that down. A lot of guys will let it hit at the bottom and then reel it up real fast, get that blade coming up, and then give them slack again and let it fall. And the fish generally hit on the fall. They see that injured bait fish, heading back to the bottom, and that's when they'll run up and grab it. Some will grab it on the way up. They see that bait fish maybe getting away from them, and then they'll come up and grab it on the way up. But it seems like most of the bites that I've gotten on any of the baits tend to be more on the fall, and it just resembles a bait fish falling. They're going up, getting away, and next thing they know, that bait fish comes falling back down to them. Just especially these blade baits come falling back down to a side-to-side motion, falling back down, and they can't resist that. And this works. All these baits will work for almost any species of fish out here. I've caught bluegill on them. I've caught crappies on them. Heck, largemouth, smallmouth bass, catfish. It's a pretty simple way of fishing, and it's a good way to keep kids entertained too. During the summer when fishing gets slow on everything else, is you can get yourself around some bait fish and throw these. It's pretty easy. I've got my marker I've got my marker out here marking. I've got a little, what we're fishing here is a main river flat that's about 22 to 24 feet deep. And it's got a ditch in it that drops down to 32 feet. And right on the edge of that ditch, I came across it, and I'll try to show you in the video. It was just stacked with fish. So we threw out the buoy and turned the boat around, and so far we've caught one quick one there. Let's see what else is down there. You can do this, I mean, depending on the bite, how active the fish are, depends on how hard you jerk it or not. You can rip it real hard off the bottom and pull it way up. You can just hop it off the bottom a little bit. Just barely hop it up off the bottom. Other times, if the fish stay a little bit more suspended, you have to you may not let it hit the bottom. You may actually engage the reel, let it hit bottom, reel it up, and then keep the bait off the bottom. Trying to watch the depth. Sometimes you can watch the depth and watch the bait at the same time. Just kind of stay over that school of fish. Keep your bait vertical right underneath the boat. These blade baits are a little better to cast than the spoons. The spoons are more of a vertical presentation, because if they fall, they pretty much fall straight down. They're not the big flutter spoons you guys use for bass fishing, that when they fall back they flutter. These smaller spoons tend to kind of just basically shoot straight down towards the bottom. You got to kind of give the action to it as it's falling, so it's a little easier to do that straight over the side of the boat. But you can throw it out, you can see bottom when you get slack in your line, and just give it a hop up. And depending on how high the fish are off the bottom, again, you just give it a hop, or you can give it a big rip and get higher off the bottom, and let it fall farther down. I kind of mix up just what I'm doing with the boat, just mix it up on different retrieves, different actions, and sometimes I'll hop it twice when it comes off the bottom. Sometimes it's just a straight pull up. You just kind of got to let the fish tell you what kind of mood they're in. Some will chase anything all the time, and some get finicky, and you just got to keep it right there in front of their face, hop it up and down right in front of their face. And the one thing you don't want to do is keep it on too tight of a line on the way down, especially these blade baits, because if you do that, the bait just falls straight down. It's hard to get used to, but you want to give it taut enough line that you can feel the bait, but leave enough slack in it that the bait can kind of do its own thing. Because if you just drop it straight down, it loses all the action that the fish are trying, that attracts the fish. This time of year in the summer, a lot of these fish are out. Our water is not as cold as it should be, or as warm as it should be this time of year. Normally these fish are out on these main river channels this time of year for the fact that the water's a little cooler down that deep. They've got current. There's always a little bit of current in the main river versus being in the backs of the bays right now. If the fish are really active, a lot of those fish are chasing in the bays, mouths of the bays, and they'll get up on those flats and chase the bait fish, and that's when they get in what they call the jumps, and you can visibly see them, and that's when it's fun. You can kind of almost throw anything in there and catch them. Top water baits, little spinners, whatever it might be, and catch those fish. But when they're out here, the white bass and yellows, they're a fairly active fish anyways. That's what makes them fun to fish for you. You're always going to go out and tend to catch some fish, even when the bite's off for everything else. But when they get out here, sometimes they're just out here to chill out themselves, and you just get these baits right in front of them. They can't resist that action of a bait fish, or what looks like to be a bait fish. I let the current carry me down here a bit. Now I'm going to turn around and go back towards my buoy and go back over that. We're back up in 21 foot of water, and that breaks down in 30, and that's what those fish are in. Where that 30 foot comes up and breaks up on 21, they're right on the edge of that. You'll miss a lot of bites with these because that bait's flopping, and they're just kind of falling down like that, and a lot of those fish, they'll come up and swing at it and miss it. So you'll have a lot of times you'll feel something hit it and go to set the hook and nothing be there, and it's not like keeping a jig or something in front of their face and they can come up and just suck it in. They're moving, trying to hit that bait, and they're trying to hit a moving bait at the same time. One thing as these baits are falling, and why I say you want to keep a little bit of a taut line, is you want to be able to feel that bait as it falls, because you're not going to feel the same vibration as when you reel it up and it's coming straight up, but you'll just kind of feel it moving down there, and you'll either feel the fish actually hit it, or you'll see your line get slack where it stopped before it should have got to the bottom, and they'll come up from underneath it, hit it on the way down, and knock slack on the line, and that's what you definitely want to set the hook then. Just be aware of what you got going on. And so I say, you don't want straight tight line on that blade bait, because it'll drop it straight back down to the bottom. Now on this spoon that I'm throwing, you got to impart a lot more of your own action in it. You pop it on the way up, and then I'll kind of pop it a couple times as it's falling down, because the spoon as it falls just kind of does nothing on the way down. So you almost got to impart your own action as it's falling. So I'll give it a pump up, and then as it's falling, I'll just shake it around. I'm not trying to jerk it back up off the bottom. What I'm trying to do is just as it falls, kind of give it a couple snaps, get it to flash a little bit on the fall again. And the spoon, like I say, it's a lot better bait for a vertical presentation than the blade bait. Those blade baits, you can kind of get them where you can cast them and pull them, and they'll fall and give themselves their own action. But the spoons, you kind of gotta give them their own action. Like now, I can feel this with a little bit of tight line. I could tell that spoon was kind of messed up. You can see what happened. It got tangled up around itself on that swivel there, and that's what it should be when you start feeling action in that spoon. You know something's messed up. You shouldn't feel any action in that spoon. Just pick it up, and you're creating the action. And as you let it fall, just shaking that rod tip as it falls is creating action in it. So there really isn't the vibration. And the same thing with the rooster tail. You'll feel that rooster tail as that blade's moving. The spoon's about the only one that you're kind of doing something with it all the time to impart action. And a lot of these spots, you don't want to stay on them a long time. You'll know if you get bit and you're catching a bunch of fish, or it's an active school of fish. They'll be on it right away. And they're getting smaller. And see, this one's fall hook just like that last one. I caught them underneath the chin. They're swinging at it, and you'll feel that when you're, against the bait. And you'll catch a lot of fish that way, where you just kind of catch them underneath the chin or alongside the cheek, because they're swinging at it. You feel that, and you're jerking. It doesn't mean that they've actually got it in their mouth. I think a lot of times what they're doing is they're swinging at it to kill it the first shot or injure it, and then they're going to come back and eat it. If you get it right, and you get right over it the right way on your graph, you can actually see it on your graph. Your bait going up and down. And a lot of times you have to do that if the fish are suspended up higher than just being on the bottom, and you're not getting them on just one or two hops up off the bottom. Sometimes you'll just have to reel up, get your bait up so high, and just kind of sit here and vertical jig it and just shake that spoon into place. So that way they'll come up and get it, or you put it right in front of them. And your best bet is to have the bait above the fish. They generally don't go down to eat something. They'll 9 out of 10 times these fish are underneath the bait, and you'll see that on your graph too. Like when you're finding them, you'll see a school of bait fish, and the fish are actually coming up underneath them and attacking them. They're not usually going down on them to attack it. We'll see if we can catch one more here, and then I'll take the camera and try to show you what I was seeing on the bottom. There is no current. I'm watching my buoy back here, and there is no current today, and that's going to keep the fish position a little bit more just kind of wide open. They're just not going to put them on any one specific spot. It's a lot easier when you got current and there's just got them pinned doing one thing or keeping them in one area. And right now you can come across these fish and they'll be in a certain spot, and then all of a sudden they'll just they'll start roaming because they've got no reason to. There's nothing keeping the bait fish on any one spot, and nothing keeping them on one spot. few, and that one's hooked on the outside of the mouth. He hit it on the top lip. But I felt either him or another one or a couple of them hit it all at the same time. A couple different fish hit that on one cast. Yeah, many times with the baits like that with multiple hooks, you can actually wind up catching a couple fish on one cast just with them all going after the bait. I try to use a little bit shorter rod. I'm generally not doing any long casting with them, so I'll use like a 6 to 6.5 foot rod and a medium action. You can use either a spinning rod or a bait caster. And I'll use 6 up to maybe 10 pound test line, depending if sometimes you'll be fishing this stuff around some brush piles and stuff, and or wood, and if you get hung, it's a little easier to pull the bait free. It's a little easier to pull the bait free on the heavier line, but the lighter line gives it a lot better action. Well, we're gonna get ready and move to a different spot, but what we'll do is I'm gonna idle you over it and see what it looks like, or show you what I seen down there that made us kind of stop and check this spot out. As you can see, we're in 25 foot here, and this is just a flat shelf out here on the main river channel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swing around here and head back towards where my buoy is. And you can see where this breaks off and see where these fish were all lined up on this break. And all it is just a little ditch indentation. I think it's just a little ditch off the main river channel into this flat. There you can kind of start seeing it break down. Kind of see a few of the fish still scattered on it. Right here, a bunch there on the break. You can see them filled in, that whole thing there. But that's what we seen, what we were looking for when we idled over it. And when you're looking for something, that's what you're looking for. But until next time, this is Brian from FishingHype.com, Fishing Hype Guide Service, and we look forward to seeing you out on the water again.